I'm Edwin Warfield. I'm the publisher of City Biz, and I'm honored today to interview Andrew Wetzler, who's the president of MoreVisibility. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Edwin, for having me.
Can you provide an introduction to MoreVisibility in terms of employees, some of your primary services? Give us an idea of where MoreVisibility is today.
Sure. So we are a team of 35 folks. Our office is here in Boca Raton, Florida. And we started the company in October of 1999. So we've just hit our 22-year anniversary. And we consider ourselves pretty much a full-service digital agency. So that is anything search-related, social media-related, web design and development, and analytics is a huge part of everything that we do.
And your entrepreneurial career started in coupons, it's transitioned to call centers, and then you ultimately headed to the web. Can you give us an overview of your career prior to starting MoreVisibility?
So I grew up in Baltimore and left to go to college down in New Orleans at Tulane. And while I was down there, I started a business in my junior and senior, and it carried through to my senior year, where I ran all around New Orleans and I sold ads and coupon books and gave them away to students, all over the New Orleans area that were, starting out freshman year, and continuing from there. And it was a great way for me to learn just A, the school of hard knocks of sales, and B, build a little business of my own that, has sort of taken me to where I have gone, over the last many years. So I came back from Tulane and went back to Baltimore and immediately went into the rare coin industry with a friend who was in Baltimore. And we spent the next couple years selling rare gold and silver numismatic coins through placing ads in the Wall Street Journal and different other publications. And that really opened my eyes tremendously to what direct marketing at the time could offer. And I left that in the late 80s, like 89, and decided that I was going to go out on my own and be a consultant, and specifically an inside sales consultant. So I sort of hung my shingle out there, and from 89 to 99, worked with organizations all over the country that were building inside sales teams. One of the ways that I was really able to build that business is that early on, I reached out to the American Management Association based in New York and offered to teach for them, and wound up creating and teaching a 3-day course on how to set up an inside sales team. At the time, I believe, the youngest instructor AMA had ever had, and I taught the 3-day course, 4 or 5 times a year for about 7 years. And that not only was just an incredible learning and growing experience of how to be in front of a room of people, but it also brought me a fair amount of, business that I was able to run with. And that's kind of how I started. And then, in the late 80s, as the internet was starting, in the late 90s, as the internet was starting to show up, like the bells went off on my head. I said, geez, this makes so much sense. Why do we want to be on the phone all day trying to find that 1 or 2 people that are interested in whatever it is that you were trying to sell? Keeping in mind that a lot of what I was doing was B2B. It wasn't, necessarily consumer-related telemarketing, if you will, but more B2B telesales. And the internet seemed just such a logical way to put yourself in front of somebody who is very interested in whatever it is that you have to say, because they're already searching for it. So I rented an email list. I started with a partner, a gentleman named Dennis Pushkin, who's also from Baltimore, who moved to South Florida about 15 or 20 years before I did, actually. And we rented an email list in October of 99, and we sent out a blast that said, if you would like to know where you are in the search engines, fill out this form and fax it back. And we got this crazy, overwhelming, like the fax machine blows up kind of response. And he and I looked at each other and said, hey, we got something here. And that was kind of our start. And we've been at it ever since.
And so 22 years in business, that's as a digital agency, you should be very proud of that. Can you provide some critical milestones over those 22 years?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a couple things come to mind. One is that we were named to the Inc. 500 and 5,000 list for either 5 or 6 years, early on in our beginning and in our exponential growth at the time, if you will. So that was pretty cool. IBM UK was one of our first clients, literally, and we were IBM UK's first digital agency. So at the time, that was like a wow event. IBM's coming to us. We thought we had it all figured out at that point. And then I guess one other milestone, a little bit after our start was that we were one of a very small group of like 8 companies that LinkedIn reached out to as they were rolling out their business pages. And we went to New York, and it was a big event, and it was like us and Pitney Bowes and all these other companies, and we were there, and it was a pretty neat event. But at the end of the day, we've just built a strong business over a long period of time of working with organizations that need help with their digital strategy and then implementing.
And some of your strategic partners, can you talk about them? They're Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Can you highlight some of those partnerships?
Well, starting with Google, our partnership with Google goes back to our very beginning, which essentially was Google's very beginning. And true story is that Sheryl Sandberg was our initial sales rep at Google. So our earliest work with Google was with Sheryl directly, and my partner Dennis, one-on-one was working with her at the time. Transitioning over to Yahoo reached out to us, and we were an early partner of Yahoo when they took over Overture and built it into their bid strategy into their ad platform, and we helped Yahoo and Overture write their initial agency partner agreement, which at the time was pretty groundbreaking. And so today, we continue to work with all the major engines and social channels. But Google, at the end of the day, continues to be, the mainstay in terms of where the most, traffic and eyeballs are headed, and where, we place a tremendous amount of energy. We've historically done multiple events with Google at their different offices around the country, where we would fly in clients and, local prospects and have a great, half-day learning event at, typically at Google's Chelsea headquarters. Given COVID, that's all been put on the side, and Google to this point is still not, inviting anybody other than employees in the office. And from what I understand, very few employees are actually going into the office, at this point anyway. But we had like an incredible event last week in Orlando where Google flew in, and we did it at the Ritz in Orlando, and we called it a wine and whiskey event. So it had a little bit of a holiday feel to it. But, we had folk from our Google team in New York come in and share with our clients and a few prospective clients that were there the latest things that Google has going on that, are mission critical to moving forward.
And so some of your clients, I was looking at, you have the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Johns Hopkins, the Miami Dolphins. Can you name some of your clients? And is it mostly B2B, B2C?
We're about split half and half between B2B and B2C. So on the consumer side, Hopkins Medicine's been a client forever. NYU Langone Hospital in New York, we do a ton of work with. Some other clients that are local to the Baltimore, Washington area, Rand Worldwide, is a many year client of ours. Arlington Transportation Partners that handles all the work for commuting in Northern Virginia, we've worked with for years. Cuisinart, we do all their digital marketing stuff. Henry Schein, which is a big international company based in New York, we help them. They're a dental supply company. So it's a mix of B2B and B2C, typically with national brands or international brands.
And so the next question, I didn't realize, if you were to answer it properly, it would probably take you 10 hours to answer. But can you give us sort of an overview of where digital marketing is today in the context of search engine optimization, search engine marketing, internet marketing? Give us, where are we today?
Well, where I think that we are today is that you, as a marketer, ought to honor channel preference from anybody that you're trying to reach. And some of your prospective customers may find you through an organic listing. Others may be predisposed to only look at a paid listing, and others may get most of their guidance from social. And social could be Facebook, on a B2C level, or it could certainly be LinkedIn on a B2B level. So all of those channels today are material and need to be considered for any campaigns that you're trying to launch or any initiatives that you're trying to target certain audiences. And depending upon what your goals are, you got to be considering all of that. That having been said, I think every website today ought to at least go through the exercise of trying to be as search engine friendly as possible so that you're able to take advantage of search engine optimization and drive as much organic or free or no cost traffic as possible. Paid search is still a critical ingredient for organizations because you need to know that you're right up there for the keywords that you need, folks to find you under. And both of those are extremely vital areas of digital marketing today.
And how is paid search changing today?
Paid search is changing a lot of different ways. Budgets are growing, and so are costs. So a click that maybe cost $2, 2 years ago could be $3 or $4 today, just purely making up a number. But what's really changed on top of that is the reliance and the importance of baking in artificial intelligence and machine learning in what you're doing. And that's essentially what Google has done over the last several years. And a lot of folks have gone kicking and screaming into turning over some control of your campaigns to Google's paid algorithm, which they call AI and machine learning. So what's really changed is that not only do you need to be super focused on making sure that you're going after the right audience and the right channel with the right keywords and the right messaging at the right price, but it's also vital to utilize the tools that the engines are giving you today to do it in the most sophisticated manner possible. And artificial intelligence is a big part of that. And there are always beta programs that are coming out that we tend to get our clients into pretty early. Google has something new which is called Performance Max, which is giving them a little bit more control, not only of just the basics of your ad, but giving them different formats and letting them, through their tools, run it across all the different Google platforms, including YouTube, to try to meet your KPIs, to meet your cost per acquisition, whatever goals that you're trying to work toward.
How big a role does local search and geofencing play in what you're offering, and how has that changed?
Google local search has become much more precise than it used to be. No different than, on your phone. You can see things, locally much more clearly on a map than you could ever before. We don't do a ton of geofencing, but it certainly has some applications. For example, we do a bunch of work with community colleges, and community colleges are typically recruiting in a very close radius to where their campus is. We do a lot of work with credit unions, and credit unions, once again, have a geography typically that they're working under. And, for things like, and one other, which is interesting, is that we've had very good success where an organization, let's say, is going to Vegas for a trade show, and they want to do a geofencing campaign at all the hotels that they know that the people that are going to the convention are staying at. So targeting can be incredibly finite in how you go after people. But all that being said, I wouldn't say it's a big part of our business, just because a lot of what we're doing are national brands that have a national presence and not so much a local one-by-one presence.
I watched one of your interviews, and you talked about the role that social media can play. That it's the role that it can play in building in building a brand in social. So, can you share those thoughts again?
Well, the beauty of social is that it's a very low barrier to entry, right? Anybody can create an Instagram page or anything else, that you would consider social today. But just the fact that you have a page doesn't really mean a whole lot. Where we, come in and help clients, but, more importantly, where clients need to go is having a strategy and a game plan and committing to a cadence of publication of material, and recognizing that social isn't something that you can do casually, but it's something that you need to be at all the time if you're going to maintain a following and really engage with your target audience. The other thing about social that has changed dramatically over the last couple of years is that your reach of anything that you post today organically, even to the people that are all following you, is nowhere near as robust as it was a few years back. And that's because today, the way that the social engines are monetizing what they do is by pay to play. So if an organization is really focused on social as a channel to drive new opportunities, you're going to want to participate in the promoted sections of the different things. It's a promoted post on LinkedIn. It could be a sponsored ad somewhere else. Anything that you do on social today, if you're really looking to capitalize on the audience, you need to be prepared to put budget toward that.
And what role does content marketing play in the offerings of more visibility?
Well, I would say when the content marketing is the Achilles heel for pretty much every company that we encounter, client or prospect or competitor or ourselves for that matter, right? So content is the fuel, is the power that gets you to do well on the internet in terms of engaging your audience. And social is obviously, a big piece of that. So you want to continually put content out there that positions your brand as a thought leader in whatever it is that you're doing. And you want to be putting out a mix of what we would call evergreen material that would be applicable no matter, what day of the week it is or what month of the year it is. And you also want to have content that's timely based on new information in your industry, things that you think people will be interested in. And once again, when I go to a website and if I'm just evaluating a company, I personally look at their blog early on. I want to see if the content's fresh. I want to see if they're thought leaders. I want to see if they're putting out information to demonstrate their capabilities is something that they prioritize. And other people will never look at a blog and think twice about it. To me, that's a really good indicator of how serious a company is to their commitment to content and education and furthering their place in the industry.
What are the implications? Google and Apple are changing their privacy guidelines. What are the implications for what you do and for digital marketing?
Well, on a very black and white basis, the implication is that you're not able and will be able to get less in the future data on people that are visiting your website by cookies. So the whole notion of third-party cookies is kind of going away, and Google and Apple and everyone else is forcing marketers to change how they, assess what's going on their website and who they view as prospects and potential clients. We're very focused on helping our clients identify which KPIs make the most sense depending on the channel that they're in and the goal of the campaigns that they're doing. But the biggest thing, Edwin, that's come into play over the last 6 to 12 months that still is being underutilized, but the clock is ticking, is Google Analytics 4. And if I could leave your audience with one very important to-do off of this interview, it would be the fact that Google Analytics 4 is something that you need to get onto your website yesterday. And you want to begin running GA4 in parallel with your prior version of Google or anything else that you're doing, so that you're able to validate the data before Google completely deprecates the previous versions of Google Analytics, and a lot of the information that you were able to see in the past, you're not going to be able to see anymore. But the new version of GA4 has built in attribution and tracking in ways that didn't exist before. And not surprisingly, it focuses a lot on machine learning to better understand conversions and user behavior to help you, employ data modeling to overcome what you can't do any longer with cookies. That's sort of a long, muddled technical answer, but at the end of the day, Google Analytics 4 is the bridge to help you understand what's going on your website today and to be able to adjust appropriately moving forward as privacy levers continue to tighten.
And is there a deadline that you have to implement GA4?
We've heard that it's the middle, roughly the middle of 2022 that Google conceptually is going to get rid of it. I don't know if that's an accurate number or not, but the fact that you can run GA4 in concurrent with another tool is the reason why you need to get on it today, so that you can make sure that the data you're collecting matches correctly and then be prepared for the new insights that GA4 will give you that you weren't seeing prior.
Well, I think our readers and listeners will appreciate that insight.
It's important.
Talk about your growth plans. You've had, I guess, it seems like mostly internal growth to date. What are your growth plans? Do you have any acquisitions? Or?
Our growth has been organic and, from the get-go. Dennis and I self-funded the company. We've never taken outside funds. We've continued to grow. COVID was a very positive thing, I think, for digital in general, not just MoreVisibility, but it's been a very strong couple years in that regard, as clients have relied much more heavily on their web presence in order to do business. We're just really busy and, still enjoying ourselves and, appreciate the challenges that come with the industry and the dynamic, ever-changing nature of things. And we're just ready to keep plugging.
And so is there any part of the More Visibility story or Andrew Wetzler story that you haven't shared with us that you'd like to share?
Just that, I moved from Baltimore a really long time ago. My family's still there. I consider it home still. I'm up there, quite often. We have a lot of clients in the, DC to New York area or, even further north up the coast. And, we're just enjoying South Florida and enjoying what it is down here, but at the same time, getting on a plane and going to see our clients and happy to, do whatever it takes to continue to maintain our momentum.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your wonderful, incredible history with our readers, and we wish you best of luck moving forward.
Edwin, it's much appreciated. I follow City Business, and your growth over time, and it's been amazing. And appreciate the opportunity to, to share with your audience, and look forward to continuing to keep in touch.